Yeah, thank you to the studio, Prime Minister Brnabić. It's a great pleasure. Let me thank you for joining our Ecosystem Couch Conference 2020 and for your continued commitment to the startup community. Since you took the role of Prime Minister, and even before, as I recall very fondly, you have been advocating for digital tech for the startup community to work with government to provide for a more efficient administration, for better public services for Serbian society. And our question would be, how do you involve innovators, startup community in these developments? And are there any specific examples you're particularly proud of, you would like to share possibly with other governments?
During COVID crisis?
Yeah, even before.
Okay, sure. Well, first and foremost, as you know, and as you have said, I've put digitalization as kind of the primary focus of my government. And when I talk about digitalization, I really mean digitalization of education, digitalization of public services, that is introducing e-government as much as possible. And digitalization of the economy. That's kind of, on one hand, the support to startup and innovation companies and research and development, and on the other hand, really digitalizing companies that are not into the kind of IT business, but which can benefit from digitalization by becoming more efficient and more competitive. So I would say in all of these fields, we have made huge advancements in the past 4 years, especially in terms of education. And that is in cooperation, I have to say, in cooperation with the organization called Digital Serbia, which we established with your help based on the model of Digital Switzerland. Digital Serbia is the organization that now gathers most of our smartest companies, but also civil society organizations that are into the whole digitalization effort. And I, as the Prime Minister, use Digital Serbia currently as our external advisor to tell us what we need to do, but also help us do these things. As I said, I think the biggest improvements were made in terms of the education, and there we have introduced coding as mandatory subject in the primary schools. So kids now learn coding when they are 11 years old, which is 5th grade, and in the 5th grade, they learn Scratch, and then in the 6th grade, they learn Python, and then 7th grade Pygame, and 8th grade Jupyter. So now we have actually, this school year, we have the first generation of school children getting out of the primary schools, which they have full understanding of programming and coding, which really is just an amazing resource for us. We have also increased the number of, we have created in the grammar schools, in the high schools, specialized IT departments for children that are especially talented in information technology, programming, coding as such. And now we have more than 1,000 high school kids going into the specialized IT classes, and the interest is growing from year to year. We have also, in order to stimulate, now this is where we come to kind of startup innovation companies, research and development, in order to stimulate people to start up their own companies, especially kind of people going out of the universities. We have invested more than 100 million euros into the innovation infrastructure. We have established, built 4 science and technology parks with a lot of support from the European Investment Bank, and so great huge thanks to the EU for partnering with Serbia on realizing this mission of ours. So we have set up a conditions for startup companies, innovation companies, people into research and development to actually have the best possible, to stay in Serbia and have the best possible conditions to work and prosper. And it has been working fantastically thus far. In the past 4 years, our IT exports have grown more than 25% year on year. The number of people employed in this industry is increasing almost geometrically. It has a geometrical increase year on year, and that is, for example, something that is saving our economy currently in the COVID crisis, coupled with some other measures that we took. Our unemployment during COVID crisis not only did not decrease, but actually has increased, especially because of the increase in the number of people employed in the IT sector. I'm trying to be brief, so I'm trying to really focus only on some of the most relevant things. I will tell you a couple of more things. In terms of digitalization of the private sector and companies, I figured out as the Prime Minister that what's going to be important is to increase the competitiveness of our economy, meaning that we invest more in research and development, and we are not treated as kind of low-cost manual labor here in Serbia, but more as a destination for research and development, innovation, creating intellectual property. So we have went through a very, very extensive reform in terms of tax environment. And I think Serbia is today one of the most competitive countries if you want to invest in research and development. And today, if you are creating intellectual property in Serbia, the corporate profit tax on the intellectual property created in Serbia is only 3% compared to a standard corporate profit tax rate of 15%. Plus, if you invest in research and development, all the money that you're investing in research and development is double counted for tax purposes, so that your tax base is even lower. If you combine these two mechanisms, then corporate profit tax on research and development created in Serbia is almost zero, because we don't want the money in the budget. We basically want the young people to stay in Serbia, other young people to come to Serbia, research and development companies to come to Serbia. We want this, to create added value to our economy, but also to stimulate knowledge and technology transfer. And finally, a lot has been done in terms of the e-government. To make the story very simple, e-government really means that as much of the services that the government provides to its citizens and its businesses should be electronic, and that has actually enabled us to continue both that and the reforms in education enabled us to, in crisis situations such as COVID crisis, we did not stop our schools even for one single day. When we went from kind of physical teaching to online teaching, that has happened immediately over the course of one weekend, because we have worked a lot on digital digital classrooms, digital textbooks. All of that has already been prepared as part of our ongoing digitalization of education efforts. So that's been done. And also the government has never stopped working in terms of the services to businesses and its citizens, because most of these services were already electronic. So I think that going digital is something that paid off within this crisis.
It's an incredibly impressive development, and let me congratulate you to what you have achieved. Indeed, we were we were amazed to see how quickly you, the administration, got this COVID-19 task force in place. And maybe you would wish to share just one or two examples how you were able to so quickly coalesce around this crisis topic, and so quickly to bring government, administration, tech, IT, startup ecosystem community into one room and come up with all these solutions to keep Serbian people safe.
Well, you know, it was almost as kind of an ongoing effort. The only thing is that, you know, because we have this ongoing effort, especially with civil society organizations such as Digital Serbia, but also startup and innovation companies through science and technology parks that we have developed. So we have ongoing cooperation. The only thing that has changed really is that we now all understood that we need to focus on emergency response to COVID. And so, you know, the dynamic was already there. The focus or the topics that we were dealing with really just changed slightly or you know, but we just continued doing things the way we did them, only with a different focus right now. Kind of working on different topics. I also have to say that, you know, one thing, for example, that we have initiated but did not manage to complete before COVID, and is certainly kind of a key focus right now for us, is full digitalization of healthcare services and healthcare sector. That's kind of something that we call e-health. And we worked all together, we worked on how to make our healthcare sector more digital or fully digital, in order to make it more efficient, in order for us to better control costs. And when we better control costs, then we can reinvest that money into something that is more needed in the healthcare sector, which is, however way you look at it, extremely expensive. So the efficiency was of key importance to us, and then the quality of services we provide in terms of healthcare services to our citizens. And funnily enough, we finalized the action plan for digitalization of healthcare sector on the 5th of February, and the first
well timed.
And the first identified case we had on the 6th of March. And I often wondered during the COVID crisis whether I, as the Prime Minister, prioritized well, because you can't do everything at the same time. But I said my priority was digitalization of the education sector. I thought to myself, if we did digitalization of healthcare sector, perhaps we would be, no, for sure, we would be even better prepared. But at that point in time, when I took over the office as the Prime Minister, we really had no idea that something like this will hit us or hit the world. And I consciously wanted to digitalize the education sector better, because I thought that's the route of a more competitive Serbian economy faster, more support to young people in Serbia faster. And so that was kind of the logic behind my decision. But anyway, going forward, and we just had parliamentary elections, so going forward, the new government will take over. But certainly, I think the key priority should be digitalization of the healthcare sector. A lot of that will have to rely on our startup companies, on the private sector, on the innovation companies. So that's going to be a #1 priority. And #2 is going, in terms of where we are going as a country, in terms of the competitiveness, where we invest money and the conditions we create for the future, certainly biotech. A lot more money into research and development in those areas, and a lot more investment into networks, you know, in terms of, you know, Europe, then European networks, but also global networks because I kind of feel that this is something that will continue to be a challenge, if not COVID, something else, but will continue to be a challenge in the world that all of us we'll have to deal with this in a much different manner in the future.
Yeah. You're betting on digital or e-health for the benefit of Serbia, to make the administration more cost effective. But when I look into our own research, you're actually betting on segments that have seen a rejuvenation. So you're in a really good spot, not only to serve Serbia, but also to further develop export-led startup communities and tech industry. So that's good. That's great to hear. Maybe just, if I may, just a short word on, we've seen a lot of angst, concern in the startup community, as particularly investor dry powder money is drying up during the crisis. And we are looking past the crisis now, past COVID. We're expecting, of course, at least a midterm, if not longer term, recessionary period to come.
Yes.
Do you have, from a state perspective, from a public perspective, any mechanisms in place that would keep this investment into your startup community, into your tech, into your innovation community intact? Is there any support? And are there any examples you believe are really great practices you possibly would wish to share with others?
Sure. Well, the first thing that we've done, and that's especially targeted to support micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, including the startup companies, is that the government has pledged that we will cover to all of these companies at 3 minimum wages for the months that they were more or less affected by COVID. And in Serbia, it was for March, April, and May, so that they keep employees. And obviously, some of them pay more than minimum wages, but the government will cover for minimum wages, and then that will allow them to actually save some money to survive if it is a prolonged crisis. Secondly, we have these new tax incentive measures that I just talked about. Thirdly, we are changing our framework for the venture capital funds to function in Serbia. More of the alternative investment funds, and now we have also developed compiled a working group to work on technologies such as crypto property rights and blockchain. So whatever we can do to make Serbia as much competitive as possible, we will do it. So we'll see. Plus, with that, we have provided for a tax-free holidays for all companies that are employing young people, and those tax-free holidays are now from anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Our unemployment is. We've made great success in terms of getting the unemployment down to a single-digit percentage. Currently, it's 9.7%. When we started off, it was above 20%. But within that unemployment, it's still the youth unemployment is still above 20. Is still about 25%. So to support companies, but also support and enhance the unemployment of youth population, we have introduced new tax incentives for employing young people or people actually coming from abroad. Because we have quite a number of people coming from diaspora coming back to Serbia because of these the COVID issues, and we want to keep them in Serbia. And we are still discussing now with chambers of commerce, but also not just Serbian Chamber of Commerce, but other AmCham, Nordic Business Alliance, and startup ecosystems based around the science and technology parks. And we have now 4 in Serbia, in Belgrade, in Novi Sad for kind of Vojvodina region, and northern Serbia, Niš for eastern Serbia, and Čačak for central Serbia. We are discussing with them what else could we do to protect especially startup companies from really surviving this this difficult period, which we hope won't be prolonged, but we are preparing that if it is, we will provide additional support. So far, the support measures have worked really well. We have also said that we will support only those companies that kept people, that did not lay off more than 10% of people. So we wanted to see their commitment to their workforce as well, and then we will help them.
Keeping these community structures intact.
Yes,
it
has worked well to date.
It is great to hear how much the tech environment, the tech community is really supporting your drive towards bringing down unemployment, creating factor productivity in the economy, and all the great initiatives you've taken to educate the next generation, have this dialogue with the community in order to provide for the best possible framework conditions, be it tax, be it public procurement, and others. It's been a great pleasure, Prime Minister, for discussing the future of Serbian startups and Serbian innovation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are most grateful for you sharing your perspectives today. And yeah, we don't want to leave without wishing you much success, but also much joy in your second period as Prime Minister of the Republic of Serbia. Thank you very much.
As I said, I'm looking forward to continuing this cooperation, because I really do believe that we are living in a very complex times in which we really need to stick together and learn from each other and push together very hard.
Again, big thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the studio.